Onimusha can actually be fairly scary. Although it's built having a very clear survival horror template that Capcom used in games like Resident Evil, it doesn't lean as much on the survival side of it, as while there are puzzles, they're not a huge part of the gameplay. Navigating the map and finding the way to progress isn't usually very hard. There is also no inventory management. It's certainly not ridden with jump scares like Resident Evil or Dino Crisis. But somehow, there is a bigger aura of oppression surrounding it. Resident Evil dealt a lot with the very immediate horror of being in physical danger, and the problem of having pharmaceutical industry with private interests. But Onimusha draws from cosmic horror and impotence as a species in the face of a bigger threat. The demons in Onimusha are beings that have existed since primordial times, created by the god Fortinbras. The humans were then created by Fortinbras as well, to serve as food and slaves for the demons. There is still a demon hierarchy that divides them in classes, the lowest ones being depicted as irrational, blood-seeking savages, but the ones at the top, which are few in number, being more powerful, either by physical prowess or magical skills, and extremely intelligent. Extremely intelligent, but unlike how they perceive themselves, not more intelligent than humans. We read and hear demons talking about how humans are some savage animals with lesser intellect, but we see humans having straightforward conversations with the higher class of demons, the more intelligent ones, all the time. Onimusha really shines here by avoiding picturing demons as biologically superior and is falling into some sort of biological meritocratic Darwinism. The demons appeared before the humans. The humans were crafted by them to be exploited. Demons have certainly achieved some technological advancements ahead of the humans, but we can observe from documents that they've also appropriated technology from the Oni, a rival extinct race. The oppression and mass murder of humans plays a part in it as well. Humans are seen multiple times being used as slaves to work on extractive or transformative processes, like working in the mines in Onimusha 2, or doing physical labor in Mont Saint-Michel in Onimusha 3. It's also documented how demons have used humans to experiment on them and conduct research. We get a pretty good model of how discrimination is bred from oppression, and how oppression arises from the conflict of competition, and not a model where the people at the top of the hierarchy are better by some arbitrary criteria and thus deserve to rule. The dialogue and writing is all around a bit silly, as well as the translation and the voice acting. This amounts to it having a very campy soap opera vibe, not very well acted, and where interpersonal drama goes back and forth in very weird ways. In Onimusha 1, you have Samanosuke lecturing Yumemaru about seeing the world, broadening his horizons and exploring different points of view out of nowhere. And in Onimusha 2, there's one of the worst romantic stories I've probably ever seen between two people that have seen each other a couple times and maybe exchanged 10 sentences. It's all a bit silly, but I enjoy it quite a bit, in a very comfort food kind of way. Dramatically, it's all very unserious despite everything that's happening, but the lack of seriousness in character dynamics and writing makes the lore behind it even more unnerving. You are witnessing the threat of a more powerful species, freely talking about humans as objects and fantasizing about eating and taking advantage of them, while seeing personal drama unfolding in front of you that is fairly out of touch with reality. It makes you feel out of place and that something is not right, and kind of amplifies the horror by making you question if any of the characters are taking what's going on seriously. In us as a species being the hunted is where true Onimusha horror lies. Being on the receiving end of mass extermination. A side people are very rarely willing to put themselves in and consider not only the horror of being on the verge of being annihilated for what you are, without any escape inside, how even in the face of it, we might end up participating and aligning with the oppressor's side. Chances are, if you're more or less like me, and have access to the comfort of video games and YouTube and internet, you haven't even been put anywhere near that level of circumstances. Hopefully, at least. And I think that makes Onimusha relevant as a work of empathy through simulated experiences. Onimusha, without exactly exploring deep moral themes, doesn't settle for a simple good versus evil story though. A story of humans, the good guys, versus the demons, the bad guys. The most clear example of that is the ascension of Nobunaga Oda, a human being groomed by the demon side to conquer all of Japan with a demon army. Besides the demon hierarchies mentioned before, Onimusha doesn't go with linear and/or simplified power dynamics among human characters either. Nobunaga is seen as an extension and tool of demonic power, and later even made their leader, betraying the human race for power to maintain oppressive control. But Nobunaga is not the only human we see having something other than an antagonistic position to that of the demons. We see merchants making business with demons, trying to survive in a world where they've been abandoned. Treason and suspicion are fairly often brought up in the personal drama that brews along in the series, especially in Onimusha 2. In it, you interact with a fair number of allies, each with their own goals and suspicions of each other. A lot of the conflicts between those characters stem from their suspicion that the others might be in fact working for the demons. The word monster gets thrown around a lot to refer to the demons by the humans, and it would be interesting to explore vengeance-fueled cruelty from the human side. But we don't get to see that at all, which is kind of weird. And for example, in Onimusha 2, some characters have all of their family and close friends massacred, but still act with some sort of code of honor. Someone turned mad by the cruelty of demons and repaying them in kind would be an interesting concept to explore. By treating people inhumanly, you get to see their humanity fading away. In the face of extinction, your morals being thrown out of the window. Humans have been brought apart and left to fend off by themselves. In some cases even ending in participating in the atrocities. We see Heihachi in Onimusha 3 questioning his own loyalty to his lord Tokugawa, a general of Nobunaga, after witnessing the murder of humans by the demons. You find documents that are very illustrative of how demons see humans as inferior beings that can be exploited as they see fit for work and food, with fairly graphic illustrations. Demonic architecture made of bone and meat looks designed to make you constantly aware of your probable end as a human. It also adds a visceral side to the existential fear. Demonic names avoid common trappings of drawing some cliché sources and go instead for Shakespearean and menacing, otherworldly, but honestly very badass names like Gogandantes, Ginganfats, or Jujudorma. Human hope lies in very precise incursions and attacks to sensitive points of the demon structure, carried by a selected few that are given weapons by the Oni. You meet a few warriors that don't have supernatural powers like the main characters, but these are usually described as very well known and established warriors, which seems to be the bare minimum to be able to stand against the demons. Until the third game, humans are never shown to be organized, and so their hope lies on individuals and isolated acts of resistance. There is always the feeling that people are on their back foot. It's even surprising there's some areas that are very peaceful, like the town in Onimusha 2, as you never really feel totally safe. In fact, in making the scale of human resistance bigger in the third game, much of the anxiety is lost. And the first two games are the better materialization of this hopelessness and isolated resistance. After all, we are put in the shoes of Samanosuke, who is by now a legendary warrior who, in the opening cinematic, is able to obliterate without much problem an entire demon army that is being mobilized to meet Nobunaga. We read documents detailing the feats of Samanosuke and Jack, the other playable main character, urging demons to be careful. An effort is made in making the fight honorable, glorious, and epic, like fighting in a temple in flames or at the top of the Eiffel Tower. Compare that to Jubei being consumed by entrails and brought to the demon world, barely lit by an eternal eclipse for the last stage of the fight against Nobunaga. And what is probably the most impressive piece of art direction in a trilogy. It's fucking amazing.
You will die.
Or Samanosuke fighting Fortinbras in a dungeon where he slithers around menacingly. The tone is much more one of a desperate attempt at struggling and barely coming out on top. Samanosuke stays behind and is never heard of again till the third game. Defeating Fortinbras, but not being able to defeat Nobunaga. Resisting costs something. You can also see it in the change in scenarios from the first two games to the third. From narrow corridors, dungeons, and misty forests, where the fixed camera makes you feel claustrophobic and alert to the possibility of a surprise attack, and your moves are more carefully planned, to fighting at the top of Arc de Triomphe, and in cozy underwater temples and towns. There is of course the town of Imasho in Onimusha 2, but this sunny hub area feels like a place you don't want to leave and are afraid of losing permanently, which in fact happens as the game progresses, than just places that are supposed to be menacing, but where you just feel kind of comfortable. But even in Imasho, the aura of tranquility is broken by the constant assaults just outside of the village, and by the appearance of a high-class demon, walking around like it's nothing, interfering with the fantasy of a safe space that is built till that moment. There are a few places that more closely capture the feeling of the first two games for sure. But generally speaking, in Onimusha 3, it's kinda clear that the goal is to induce a different feeling and maybe to appeal to a wider audience. This is particularly clear in the decision to take the game to modern-day France, which does absolutely nothing for the narrative, except raising questions of why don't the demons exist in the present day, and how were modern-day forces armed with machine guns massacred by an army of sword-wielding beasts? The relationship of domination between the demons and humans is removed, instead of its evolution throughout history being explored. You can play as Michelle, a policewoman, the girlfriend of Jacques, in the modern-day scenarios, armed with automatic weapons and grenade launchers. And these sections feel absurdly easy, as you can just spam shots from afar till all the monsters are dead. Towards the end of the game, you are even given a whole Oni army to fight against demons. It's all kinda pointless. I have the impression that a lot of the battles start to be more battles of attrition, where the same enemies keep spawning over and over for a while, which consequently just asks you to use the same strategy over and over till you kill them all and proceed. It's not particularly difficult either, if you already have a grasp of the Onimusha mechanics and how to approach battles. If I'm not mistaken, I think I got maybe one game over in a fight till the final boss. Of course, pre-rendered scenarios are replaced by 3D models. I guess to cut corners in production and allowing developers to reuse assets, since we still get a fixed camera. And of course it detracts from the experience, because although some scenarios are still kinda interesting and have some attention to detail and some identity, reusing textures is nowhere close to the personality that the attention to detail in coming up with pre-rendered scenarios brings. It would be amazing if we could get pre-rendered Notre Dame with dramatic camera angles and lighting on the Gothic architecture while fighting demons. The interpersonal drama, which for the series has never been put to very high standards, is even worse than before. With the voice acting still being of the same quality, we are made to witness a half-assed storyline about a conflict between Henri, Jacques' son, and Michel because whatever, his biological mom died, and apparently he feels guilty. She gets closure by Henri seeing his mom in a dream, telling him that it's not his fault. Somehow this fixes everything, so no wonder Jacques is just as enthusiastic about it all as he sounds when blurting out a "yeah." after that whole scene.
Henri and Michel are getting along now.
Really? Thank you.
Isn't it great? Now you can marry Michel.
Yes.
Onimusha 2 does have a really forced romance between Jubei and Oyu, but usually the rest of the interactions feel campy but grounded. Where in Onimusha 3, everything sounds like the writer had to write the script attending to Twitter's character limits. There are entire interactions between characters that are very disconnected and feel like they're playing a broken phone game, which can definitely be attributed to a shitty translation, but it doesn't look like the source material was great to begin with. What we got is something more focused on appealing to more people, while cutting costs, than a clear artistic vision someone had and fought to give shape. It has some good moments, but it's definitely the most forgettable of the trilogy, and a step back from the carefully crafted and more iconic previous two games. But at least the common idea that crosses all three games is the one of the systemic nature of the problem. We fight and defeat individual threats, only for them to be replaced by another one, continuing their predecessor's work. It's clear that the demons need the system to be kept in place in order for them to stay on top. No matter how many of their leaders we kill, the system continues, and so does human exploitation.